All right, welcome everyone to today's cluster lifecycle meeting. Today is August 8th, 2017. Let's pull up the agenda and see what's first.
Jacob has something.
Hey. Excellent, I'm still trying to find the notes. Go ahead, Jacob.
I'm gonna just jump into it. So it's a quick broadcast. A few people have asked for more information about how our end-to-end test stack works. There's just so much information there, and I don't even know where to begin. I've tried to write this doc a few times that I think it'll just be a lot easier with just an interactive back and forth questions, interactive demo, that sort of knowledge sharing session to see what people, like what are the gaps that even need to be discussed and documented. So I've linked to an issue where I'm trying to gather people who are interested and availability times to actually set up at least the first session. I don't know how many sessions we're going to need, but if you're interested, there's a Google Sheet, copy and paste a template line, and then fill out your information, and I'll try to make something that works for the most people. And also, if there's anyone who's interested in joining that has recording permissions, I do not, and it'd be great if we can record the session and post it somewhere.
I can do that.
Awesome, awesome, thanks. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to getting to know that kind of stuff more and better.
Yeah, I stuck a link directly to the sign-up sheet into the meeting notes as well, so people don't have to bounce through the issue.
Thanks.
All right, Lucas, you're next.
Yeah, just a quick question on what's the status of like add first, kill then, the update strategy for daemon sets. We have 3 weeks left before code freeze. Just wanted to check in on that work. Is Aaron here today?
Yeah, I'm on the call.
Cool.
Sorry, I missed what you were asking.
Oh, yeah. So how is the work going on the new update strategy for daemon sets?
I don't think Diego's on the call, but he was going to try and get started on it maybe this week. I don't foresee it. I mean, without having looked at the code, I don't see it being a huge amount of work. I think it's mostly copying and pasting existing strategies, creating a new one, and switching the order.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, sounds good to me. If he could start doing it this week, so we have. I mean, reviews can take some time, so the sooner we get it, the better.
The next line item was sort of another check-in for 1.8 progress, which was checkpointing. So maybe Tim can give an update on that.
So we've gone back and forth on a couple of conversations, and there's a meeting tomorrow, and that's part of my PSAs below. Yuju and I are on the same page with the generalness of the proposal that exists. And I'm going to talk to SIG-Node today too as well. She has specific locations where she wants to add the code, but the code itself is really not that much. I think more of this has to do with socialization and understanding the roadmap after the initial implementation, and at least listening to concerns and making sure they're addressed in the proposal once we get it finalized and pushed up to the community repo. So I think at this point, if for those who are interested, we will discuss it tomorrow with other interested parties as part of the ongoing meetings that we are having. And I think that's pretty much it, unless Aaron or Lucas has other comments.
Do you have something like one sentence or two on config maps? Like we've said that secrets is out of scope, and at least
we're gonna leave it as a stretch goal. I don't, I want to get the proposal done and the code in place and SIG-Node happy before I do anything else. Because the review process and everything, all this other processes that are going on right now are taking far longer than I had hoped for and require far more socialization than it does actually code changes. So
having that defined as a stretch goal is sounds really good to me.
As long as we're checking in, I was just reviewing sort of our planning doc for 1.8. And there are a couple of things we haven't talked about recently that we had marked as P0. So I just wanted to touch base on those real quick. The first is which we were hoping to close at least 10 issues. And so basically fixing some bugs in kubeadm repository. And I think Jamie was going to take the lead on this, obviously not doing it all by himself. But I don't know if he or anyone else has actually been sort of keeping track of our progress on that so that we could know if we are anywhere close to our goal of 10, which was about 10% of the open issues at the time that we created the goal.
I think we've reached that goal and have been even more successful, I think. Of course, I mean, I just spawned like 5 new issues, so it's back to the same level, but anyway, I mean, I think we've closed at least 12 or something like that, old ones, and of course, like as it should, new issues are spawned for our 1.8 goals. So that's now the like largest part of what we have.
Okay, and the next one was improving test coverage. So this was trying to get better test coverage for kubeadm. Right now we sort of have a single golden path that we test, and we don't really test the other ways through the code in an automated fashion. I don't know if anybody's been working on that either.
So there was a guy from Canonical, I think, who had some PRs on this. He posted a week ago or something, or this week, that he was totally overloaded and couldn't like proceed with that effort, which he had like been assigned kind of. Jamie might be able to take lead on that somehow, I don't know. But I think it fits pretty well into like the discussion we're gonna have with Jacob. Like, how do we actually write code for this stuff? So like in a more efficient manner, I mean, right now we have something hard-coded here and there and assumptions. If we could do this in a more generic way without having to like build everything into test infra, it would be better.
True. And also from our side, Jessica has started looking at the test infra and to write upgrade tests for kubeadm, which is sort of more aligned with making upgrades work than improving test coverage, but it also helps spin someone else up understanding the test infrastructure. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah, we do have better coverage of E2E tests. Wang Haoran from Red Hat has been working on Node Authorizer and Bootstrap token E2E tests. So we now have Bootstrap token E2E coverage for kubeadm tests at head, and Node Authorizer is coming as soon as like the grand new split of E2E tests is reordered. So right now his PR is blocked on refactoring SIG-Auth's tests, but after that's done, the code is written already. So it's going to be merged hopefully by next week. So in that sense, we have better coverage and also much better coverage on unit tests.
Awesome, thanks. So Lucas, you have the next thing on the agenda also.
Yeah, so I attended SIG-PM some minutes ago, and we talked about PM representatives from each SIG. It turns out that Dan has been our representative so far, but he has other work to do right now. So we should at least look if there's someone else from Chorus that can take on being the PM representative from this SIG, or if we should have others to volunteer.
Do you know, is the intention here to have PMs be the PM representative, like PM, or I guess there were sort of two ways this was discussed. One was to have people from SIG-PM attend the other SIG meetings, and the other was to have people from the SIGs attend the SIG-PM meeting. Which way did you decide upon?
The latter, I think it is. So Jace, feel free to speak up about it, but
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So that definitely having a representative from this group in the SIG-PM meetings, if possible, will help create that steel thread, especially when the cluster lifecycle group wants to sponsor a feature and a stabilization release. And there's a lot of questions. I know Joe's had a lot of concerns, and I mirror his concerns about the relevancy and the importance of SIG-PM and what it's trying to do. I think one of the important lines of communication that we want to maintain is between this SIG and that SIG. So it's really about having somebody from this SIG present in those meetings so that we can talk about what features are coming up, how we best promote them, and ensure that the feature lifecycle is on track in accordance with whatever type of feature or release we're putting out.
There's also been, so SIG architecture is also starting up, and we're trying to figure out sort of, how do we capture and make obvious to folks sort of what the long-term architectural decisions and trends are. And we're still figuring out the relationship between that effort, which is very much sort of technical, long-term focused, and what role SIG-PM has. Now, I personally, I can't make the SIG-PM meetings, and so, and I don't see a lot of, it's difficult to actually see what SIG-PM is doing if you don't go to those meetings, which is, I think, unfortunate, because I think one of the biggest things that they can do is help to sort of get the message out there. So that's why I think there's a ton of overlap between what SIG-PM does and our community meetings. And so yeah. I don't know if you were, we're gonna try, I believe, this time to do a little bit of overlap and mix things up a little bit. I'm really interested to see how that works.
Yeah, in fact, that will be the next. We did the SIG-PM meeting today, but we're going to do that. Will be ostensibly the next SIG-PM meeting is at the community meeting. So your concerns are absolutely valid, and we want to make sure that gets rectified.
And then we just keep playing around with it until we find something that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the SIG-PM group has a really important function. We just need to really lock down what that is and define it, and especially in light of SIG architecture. But just for me personally, since SIG cluster ops, almost more than any other group, is so end user focused and cluster operator focused, that this work is arguably, I hate to use superlatives, but this group has a huge impact on the way Kubernetes is perceived in the world. So we need to keep a really tight loop there.
Okay, well, it sounds like we don't quite have a volunteer yet. You said that the meetings are every other week?
Yep, that's
every
correct.
other week.
So yeah, I'm not in the office 2 weeks from today, so I cannot attend the one on the 22nd. I mean, we have a PM at Google who I can try to send to it, but he is not always at this meeting either, so he may not be up to speed on what we're actually working on.
So, Jace, I mean, so what happens at the SIG-PM meetings we're having? Is it just input into a bunch of people, or are there decisions made? It feels kind of like a black hole, I got to be honest.
Well, I actually wrote a document this morning, and it is the stabilization versus regular release, and it actually has some specific goals and guidelines and things that are for SIGs to participate in the process, and also what are the controls which SIG-PM is responsible for. So I think it's going to start doing that demarcation.
Yeah, so there's SIG release also, and then I know as we get down to get down to the wire. There's, I'm trying to remember the name of the mailing list for actually approving changes, after code freeze to get stuff in. I mean, is this really trying, I mean, is the goal here to actually be able to figure out sort of what's in and what's out for a release and just that tactical, what's happening on the ground, and or how does it relate to SIG release then?
I will hope that is all clear in the document, that will eventually, once it's been reviewed by the rest of the SIG-PM team, that will hopefully be much clearer, because that is absolutely an area of grayness that is not helping the project right now.
Okay, but like more than the SIG-PM team should have input into that document.
I 100% agree, but we also don't want to waste everybody's time with something that's not at least reviewed by the group. So,
it will
be coming soon to a mailing list near you.
Okay.
Sorry, I keep interrupting your meeting.
Caleb, you mentioned an hour ago that you might have someone from CoreOS being a PM representative for the SIG.
We had someone, Ryan, who's on the call, just start. We have to decide whether it makes sense for someone from CoreOS to take up Dan's role. Obviously, that would, I guess, if no one is clamoring for it, I guess it certainly seems to be our responsibility to find a replacement, since we held the position previously. So I'm going to follow up offline and see if we can find someone who attends this meeting to be the PM rep. And I guess we can follow up with you, Robert, whether you have someone from Google who wants to attend as a PM rep.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that because Dan is stepping down that you are on the hook for finding someone from CoreOS to be a replacement. I mean, I think that's sort of not the model we want to propagate, is that, someone else from your company has to replace it because someone from your company was doing it before. Like the point of the SIG is that we are a community, and like we sort of take turns in some of these roles. And so I don't think it's reasonable for someone else to step up in that role for a while. And maybe we should make it more of a rotating position officially, instead of somebody does it until they get tired of it.
Right. I think that's fair. It's just that if there was a staffing gap, like, we held the ball last, is my point.
Yeah, and maybe we should do something like, say, like for the 1.8 release cycle, it'll be this person, and then we'll pick someone for the 1.9 cycle and sort of rotate that way, so everybody gets sort of a 3-month stint. Because I don't think that'd be too painful to do it for, bi-weekly every 3 months. It's not that many meetings. I think we have a number of people that would be probably willing to do that.
We do this informally in SIG scheduling to outline who's going to have what major role as part of the cycle, because it's impossible for us to we don't have as many people as the SIG, and it's constantly an issue to make sure that we rotate people through to get enough mind share distributed amongst the group, so that way no one person becomes a point of failure or fault, right? So like I said, I can't be there in 2 weeks, but I'm happy to do it sort of for the rest of this release cycle, and then we can reassess after 1.8, if that's helpful.
That sounds great to me.
All right, well, I'll add that to the notes. Tim, you've got some PSAs?
There was another PSA for the checkpointing, but we already talked about that. The one PSA I wanted to give to the SIG was, for those who hadn't seen it, we had open sourced a tool as part of the CNCF conformance effort called Sonobui. The reason why I'm mentioning it here is because there were some issues open previously with regards to post-cluster stand-up validation, and that's part of the area that Sonobui aims to address. For those, I could probably do a demo at some other meeting. And I plan to do one at SIG testing today, if you're interested. And it basically just serves to validate, ensure your cluster is conformant after you've stood it up. So if you're interested, feel free to take a look at it, and that's about it.
Tim, how long does it take to run?
If you enable full conformance, it takes a while. Right now, the current default for the quick start examples is set to only run one test just to validate that it's grabbing everything and it runs on your cluster. There is a separate page that outlines all the details, so it could take 20 to 30 minutes to run at the end, depending upon the size of your cluster.
Right. I guess I'm wondering, like, if we should make this sort of part of the normal create cluster flow, something like this. I mean, if it takes 30 minutes to run, that's probably not a good user experience for someone. Like, get started with Kubernetes and wait half an hour so we can verify that your 3 nodes you provisioned on a cloud that's pretty reliable is conformant when it should basically always be, right? If it's like a quick smoke test that runs really fast, maybe that makes sense. Or if there's a version that does that.
Yeah, we could always trim down the set of tests and have like a light and a heavy. The current conformance list is 167 tests or something like that. So it seems completely reasonable to me to basically have, like, if we know kubeadm follows a particular flow, we could have something that is a trimmed down version of it that will run in orders of magnitude less than it takes to run all the other tests.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my view, the thing that's probably most likely to break is networking, right? So if we did like a quick networking test that verified pod-to-pod networking was working, like, things like, the daemon set controller working properly are probably okay if you're using the same version of kubeadm that we've tested and released. But your networking setup may be funky, right?
What I can do is I can open up an issue and I'll paste it inside the notes here, and feel free to chime in.
Cool, thanks. What were you gonna say, Lucas?
Yeah, just agree that, I mean, the normal daemon set things or like pod will be recreated is nearly always working because you're using a released Kubernetes version, but networking might break really easily, or DNS or something like that.
Right, especially if you're using like, different phases of kubeadm, but not the whole thing end to end. And I think you could much more easily get into a state where your cluster sort of looks right, but networking is broken. Then your cluster sort of looks right, and daemon set is broken. Right.
So this is one thing we're discussing in the kubeadm adoption working group as well. Like, how do we actually verify on a cluster deployment level that this cluster is conformant when everybody has like their own variant? And that's kind of hard, but hopefully it will get a little bit easier, at least with like when everyone's, or most ones eventually use kubeadm as a minimum base.
Cool. Lucas, you're going to do a demo next, it looks like.
Yeah, so if nobody has any other things, I can do a demo of kubeadm upgrades. So it's, let me see if I can paste the number here as well to the PR. You can, I think this needs to rebase now, but I'm going to do that later today. But you can pull it and try it yourself. Let me see if I can share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, cool. So first, I'm doing a normal kubeadm init. And here I'm specifying to use Kubernetes version 1.7.1. And I'm setting a custom API server port. The default is 6443. And now I'm setting it to 443. And I'm doing this to demonstrate that if the user did this, when they're upgrading, it shouldn't break, right? Because it's not the default, but it's the customization should be preserved. This is something our alpha upgrades right now doesn't do. So if we had, I mean, it's documented and we haven't had any users complaining about it, which is.
But it was a terrible shortcut. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on the first 2-3 days, it came in 2 or 3 issues, like with users. Oh, my flannel broke when I upgraded because the controller manager flagged for or it isn't there anymore, and such things. But after that, we haven't had a problem. Anyway, if they're upgrading from 1.7.4 plus, they're unfortunately this thing didn't like make 1.7.0 uploading the config map, but it will be later on. So there we have a cluster, and then so if I now run kubeadm, everything's prefixed or like with alpha, gate by an alpha flag, but it will obviously be removed. Kubeadm alpha upgrade. This is what it looks like, and we have apply and plan. We can allow experimental upgrades if we want to upgrade to beta and alphas. If we want to upgrade to RCs, we can do that as well. This is one thing we're hoping with kubeadm is that people will actually test the RCs with this method. Well, might not be the case.
Is there some type of clause that gets placed up with some ver check on things that are not released versions?
So you mean if you're using CI versions, or?
Well, no, if you're using a release candidate, even we should put out some warning clause that you are using a release candidate, et cetera, et cetera. If you're using beta.
Yeah, I can add a big banner or something. I mean, I think I have a small warning or something like that, but it could definitely be larger. Anyway, and we have specifying the config flag, kubeconfig, where do I talk to, and print config. So if I do kubeadm alpha upgrade plan now, it will fail because I'm currently checking like is the cluster upgradable, and the API service healthy, and we have one unhealthy node. And what's that then? Well, I haven't deployed a daemon set on this node, so it obviously doesn't work. But requiring a network is great, like from our perspective, or like requiring the user to upgrade a healthy cluster is pretty reasonable, but it also like works around the node not ready thing we have in case we have to use deployments and these things. So we're not limited in the same way we are on kubeadm init, but yeah, that's a side note. So when we then, okay, now we're ready, we can do that again. And this is the output. I'm actually considering to use colors. I don't know if people would like that, but I mean, there's, well, kind of a bit of text here. So if we could highlight like this is healthy, all nodes are healthy, the static pod hosted control plane is healthy, and these things.
As long as you're able to disable it in case you need to pipe it to something else and not have all of the escape sequences.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I could start at least with like, well, this isn't merged, so we could start with non-colors, but it could be nice with having something and a disable flag. Then we're reading configuration from the cluster. So if we do this command, we'll see what options were used at kubeadm init time. And the important thing here is bind port 443 instead of the default 6443. And this means that kubeadm upgrade will notice that, oh, I should now deploy the upgraded API server with this port instead of the default. So, I mean, and yeah, so if we do allow upgrades like that, we'll see two upgrade possibilities. So first we have like the normal one, and then we have the the experimental one. And I mean, it's possible to upgrade to this version, but still, as Tim said, we could have some kind of big banner before. But if you do that, you have to, in any case, have this flag allow experimental upgrades before you can do anything. So if I want to upgrade to 173, and just so we know something has changed. So server version is that one. And now after the upgrade, it's going to be 173. So we're doing the same health checks again. We're reading the configuration from the cluster. We're validating that we can upgrade to this version. There's kind of a lot of policies to take into account. We see that the current cluster version is 171, and we want to upgrade to 173. And the kubeadm version is from like my fork. That's not important now, but if we specify y here, it will pre-pull the images, the control plane images. This is basically a daemon set with the images that are going to be used, and they're just sleeping an hour. And this is because if we do this kind of pre-pull with daemon sets thing, we're not going to, when we're upgrading, like fail on bad internet connection or something. So that's one good thing, that if we don't have internet connection, it will just route in the pre-pull phase, not in the actual upgrade phase. So here we have upgrading your static pod hosted control plane to version 173. And then we're writing new manifest temporary directory. I don't know if this has to be shown, but anyway, it could be useful. I mean, upgrades are scary for most users, so it could be good to show some output. Like, this is where I'm writing things now, and here is the backup. Like, and if this fails, I'm going to automatically roll back this backup manifest to the old place, and things will be restored. And API server was updated. The same goes for controller manager here, and the scheduler, and then we just applied the add-ons again. So
Lucas, there are a couple of questions in chat about the pre-polling step.
Okay, yeah.
Clarify exactly
I don't
what that does.
see the chat.
Sure. So someone asked if what the sleeping for an hour part was in the daemon set, and also about pre-pulling the images, maybe requiring a shell.
So no, well, it's not pre-pulling in that sense. I'm just, kubeadm is creating a daemon set with actually 3 daemon sets, and they're using the image, the new image, like in this case GCR. Well, if I do a docker ps, it says there we go.
So it's doing a sleep as like the command for that daemon set, which implies, I mean, it assumes that there is a sleep command inside that container that can be called. So if we ever move to like smaller containers that just have the static binary in there, that won't work. But I mean, really, we need a better pre-pull mechanism through the runtime.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is a long-standing bug.
I guess I didn't understand Matt's question. He was saying that the container itself had to have a shell in it that we were relying on for that sleep command to work, which is true.
Yeah, which is true.
Lucas, my question was really, I thought I heard you say 1 hour. Is that correct, or did I?
Yeah.
You said sleep for 1 hour.
Yeah, so it's just sleep 3,600 seconds, and if it would take longer, I mean, kubeadm would anyway error out before that period.
Okay, so that's essentially like
sleep
forever.
infinitive,
Right.
Forever. And when kubeadm like notices that these pods are running, it just kills them, and we know that image is cached on disk.
So it sounds like this might be a place
it has been run.
Oh, sorry. I was saying it sounds like this might be a place where we want to add like a feature request to NodeSig for an explicit API call to pre-pull images, because this is a lovely workaround, but definitely seems kind of like a hack.
It is. I mean, I can see if I can dig up the feature request. There is one.
There's been one for a long time. There's been a couple of them. We asked for this a long time ago because it's standard operating procedure for those who are doing immutable images to pre-pull all their images across their infrastructure before they deploy a new image. And we did this all the time because it optimizes your environment.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty common ask. So maybe we can pester them for that in the 1.9 cycle.
Yeah, we should definitely at least start the conversation there for real. I mean, as we said, the feature requests have been for a long time there, but well, no movement as far as I know. Anyway, that's the workaround we're doing right now, and we can see that kubectl version outputs 173.
Cool. I had a few questions about the UX. So when you specify the Kubernetes version that you want to upgrade to, does it still support the abstract strings that we do at the kubeadm level normally, like latest 1.6, or is it specific one specific semver?
Yeah. Well, let me see what happens. I mean, if I there. It just says that it has to be a real version number.
Related question: is there any way to specify my own images that are in my own container registry? And is that a feature we want? I mean, I've wanted that feature in the past to have sort of just copies of things that I maintain on an internal registry, and they are basically just clones of the upstream images, but they're not in gcr.io.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's possible. You just, I mean, when you kubeadm init, you can specify this image repository field in the
Great.
API, and you can. I think we have it documented somewhere anyway, so you can just set whatever you want to here. And
that's great. Sorry, I didn't know about that.
yeah, I mean I have the proposal for a more self-describing API. Indeed, we really need that. But yeah, I mean, if it doesn't make 1.8, we have to stick around with this, and yeah, that's definitely a thing to document even better. I mean, it's really non-obvious. I mean, having to type this to see this, or well, just write a config file.
And you
Yeah,
had two different flags for opting into non-standard releases. And I think one was specifically RCs. And when you say that, does that exclude alpha beta? You actually mean like RCs, or is it just pre-release releases? And the other one was experimental. And I was wondering if experimental just completely meant continued like CI builds, or if they also meant just like anything that we don't parse as semver. Does it mean I can just point to completely arbitrary buckets that don't follow the naming conventions, or like the distinction between those two flags? Could you explain that again?
Yeah, that's one area that definitely could be improved, like from the UX side. Experimental versions in this context, what I've done so far is alpha beta, and RCs is like, well, experimental is alpha beta on RCs. It allows for everything of those, but it still has to be a semantic version. Allow RCs just allows for RCs.
Okay, so if we wanted to, this is a totally leading question, I apologize for that. If we wanted to automate the upgrade tests for like our CI builds, like either post-submit or pre-submit, how would you envision the UX looking? So we say, I have an arbitrary CI build, here's the location. Would it be changing this master configuration to point there instead? Or is it something that we could actually have supported at the CLI level to say, here's an arbitrary version?
Yeah, let me check. I think it should be possible, like this is what such a version looks like, right? Something A, B, C, D, F. Yeah. So I think this could be a CI version, right?
Right. And so would you just pattern match to know, because we push them to a different bucket, so would you just kind of switch on that to know where to look? Because
yeah,
we also
I know.
Or the Docker builds, and now we have the new Bazel builds, and they're stored in a different location, but have identically looking versions.
Oh yeah. So I mean, this is coming soon, really soon in a PR I'm previewing. So you can do kubeadm init and Kubernetes version CI/latest. And that is a shortcut for actually getting the latest CI build and setting image repository to the CA bucket for our builds. So if we do that on kubeadm init time, it will work just great to upgrade as well.
Okay, but we'll probably want something like, when I install, I want the latest stable 1.7, and then I want to upgrade to the latest CI build from this PR, something like that. So probably need something.
Then you'd have to we have to just send GCR.io Google containers here to our.
Maybe that's something I'll loop in Jess, because she's thinking about all of this right now, and loop you in and try to figure out what it should look like for that.
Yeah, definitely happy to get some feedback on that one. Yeah. Any other questions, comments on the overall UX? I mean, it's a lot of text.
I know Luke had comments. It's kind of a shame that he's not here. He has higher opinions on what he considers a more intuitive flow to be like. I don't know if you solicited feedback from him at all.
Yeah. So the feedback I got 1.5 weeks ago, I have incorporated that into this flow. But I mean, obviously, there's still gotchas and UX improvements that could be made. But anyone else, on a high level or something?
Sounds like that's a no.
Yeah.
Anyway, sort of folds into your next agenda item, Lucas, which is PRs to review. If you do have feedback on the UX, one good place to present that feedback would be on the pull request for these changes.
Yeah, really. And also, it's the last one, or 48899 is the really big one. 3,000 accounting lines. I'm splitting up and that PR in several smaller ones that are can be reviewed logically. And I mean, there's going to be a couple of them, and it would be great to get reviews on those depths before the actual upgrades PR can be merged at all. One thing to notice here that I didn't mention is that if you 1.7 is deploying a static pod control plane. If you upgrade from 1.7 to 1.8, it will preserve the static pod control plane for you. It will not upgrade to self-hosted, but if you do kubeadm init, a new cluster on 1.8, it will use self-hosting by default. And when you upgrade to 1.9, it will upgrade or require you to upgrade to self-hosted before you can do that. but this kind of works with both at the moment. So if you have a self-hosted, well, great. But well, it's doing the hacky thing before we have the real upgrade strategy.
And the config map that stores the parameters didn't get merged until like 1.7.3 or 1.7.4, right?
It's up for review.
Okay. So if you have
it's
before that and you run the upgrade command, what happens?
You have to specify the same you did in kubeadm init.
Is there, I mean, that should be a pretty easy thing for us to check in the upgrade command, is if version before the version where we know we were storing the config map, or if we can't find the config map, maybe to let the user know, like, by the way, we're going to blow away all of the parameters you specified during running init unless you re-specify them. Are you sure you want to continue?
Actually, I have such a warning, but it's not very well highlighted in the, like, that old text that is outputted. So, I mean, colors would be great or something.
Sure, and right, and we wouldn't have seen that today because you were creating ones that did have the config map for the demo purposes.
Yeah, because, well, I used my build from master, so, my fork, so it did it automatically. So, but yeah, 1.7.4 will have that capability.
In terms of code reviews, I know that Tim St. Clair has sort of been doing a yeoman's job of getting through a lot of your code reviews. I don't know how many other people have the time, bandwidth, or expertise to do code reviews, but it would be great if, again, we could sort of spread that burden around a little bit so it's not all landing on one or even two people's shoulders. So sort of just a call out that if you do feel like you want to contribute, even if you don't feel like you are necessarily a great code reviewer, one way to learn is to practice. And you can sort of pair up with someone else who's doing a code review and maybe take some burden off of them in the process.
I'm happy to review stuff. You just have to poke me, right? But feel free. Stuff gets lost. But feel free to reach out to me. Lucas is good at this. He's like, Joe, can you review this stuff? And then I try and get.
Has happened a couple of times before, or more.
Many times.
Great. Well, we're at the end of the agenda items. We have about 9 minutes left. Does anyone want to squeak something else in, or should we get out of here early for once?
Michael pasted something into the chat. Do you want to speak to that?
Just because I said I'd love to contribute to the docs for kubeadm upgrade, and I created an issue in docs there, and I don't know whoever looks at that assigns it or whatever. That's.
If you want to work on docs, I have a huge backlog for you.
I've written be glad to do it. I write lots of stuff. I don't know how good my stuff will be, but no.
Yeah.
Stuff, okay.
Did you want to contribute, like reviewing code or writing code, or?
Both, yeah. I need to probably talk to somebody offline about what types of things there are to work on. I want to dig into something, and I like what this project's doing. So,
cool.
Definitely docs. Awesome. I mean, docs is something I'm pretty good at. I've done 2 books, so I won't admit that they're Perl books, but hey.
So we talked last week. Other than docs, like a great way to get started is to help with testing, because writing tests is probably like a good introduction to figure out how the code base works. So I would encourage you to sign up on Jacob's spreadsheet for his sort of EDE test infrastructure learning session. Maybe try to like write a couple of tests and sort of see how the process works and pivot from there into adding features.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we can't get enough docs. I'm doing a pass every quarter, but not more. So some continuous improvements would be really nice.
That's what I guess. That's my motivation that I offered it to improve it.
Cool.
For that new.
Yeah, Patrick, feel free to like ping me on Slack, and I can assign you something or.
my question is, that issue that I raised there, who is gonna, prioritize that, assign it, or whatever? That's the main question.
Yeah, I can, specifically about upgrades or.
Yep.
Yeah, once I have something, I'll post there. I don't know right now, but yeah. Well,
we can take it offline. That's fine.
We can take it offline. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. I think with that, we will call it for the week. I will be out of the office next week. So I will see you guys in a few weeks.
Happy vacationing.
Yeah. Going to go see the eclipse. I'm excited.
All right, come back with both eyes working.
Yes, that's the plan.